Hi, Jasper here. Welcome back. If you've seen the first part, I want to thank you a bunch. But if you haven't, I'd recommend you watch because from this point on, things won't make sense. Anyways, enjoy. We'd start off with Heather thanking Duncan for beating Alejandro and Harold's butts, which Duncan's like, it's my pleasure. And when Cody asks for some credit last challenge, Duncan would compliment Cody, saying, Cody, I never ever would have thought you had that strength as potential in you. Duncan would joke saying Cody could possibly be the leader that our team needs, which Heather rolls her eyes. Cody would thank Duncan a bunch for winning his challenge, and he'd say Duncan was good to Gwen in action. Duncan would pat Cody too hard, making him fall. Harold would remember the time Alejandro promised him and Tyler an IOU for saving him in the jungle, and hasn't used that favor but deviously plans to mess with Alejandro with this. As Alejandro tells Tyler some good relationship tips, and to go spend time with Lindsay, Harold would call Alejandro out, exclaiming, he better not be planning a mass picking on me with Duncan. You two are trouble together. Bridget and Leshawna try to calm down the situation, and Tyler and Lindsay are kissing, but Alejandro would tell the ladies to let him handle it. Alejandro would explain to Harold that he is not responsible for what Duncan thinks or does to you, and I'll give my sympathy if he plans to eliminate you. Harold would mention you should also give me your IOU you promised in Amazon. Alejandro's just not in the mood to do something for Harold, as he's more focused on helping Duncan settle in, and Heather with her feelings, so when he hears this, Alejandro would be shocked that he hasn't done anything yet, and would demand Harold not to use his favor. Harold would say, I'm gonna save mine for later, maybe when you're off task. I'll ask you, who knows? It could be later today, or it could be tomorrow, or it could be the finale, who knows? This actually makes Alejandro worry for what Harold has in store for him, but he tries to set it aside. Everyone would pull up to Area 52, which Duncan still comments about the show being cheap, but finds out the hard way that they're going to Area 51. Alejandro would chuckle a bit seeing Duncan being zapped. Alejandro would tell Tyler to split up and go with Team Victory since he doesn't want Harold to randomly call his name, which Tyler is okay with because he's with Lindsay. Team Victory would go to the minefield and Amazon go to the lasers. Harold would be happy to see Tyler join, but would sorta want Alejandro. Nonetheless, Harold asks Tyler if he has been avoiding Alejandro's lies, which Tyler questions lies. Dude has been helping me, which Harold facepalms as Tyler would hug Lindsay while walking in a mine. It is only when Leshawna steps on one and is sent to the room Owen was in, when Harold realizes they're on a minefield and tries to force everyone to stay close. Alejandro would be charming Heather, who clearly has a problem with him existing. Duncan, while messing with Cody, would find the entire love situation funny and even starts to encourage Heather to confess. She wouldn't like that at all, but doesn't want to get fully mad at Duncan. Soon, Duncan is carried away and is shocked by the lasers, which all four realize. Lindsay and Tyler would be carried away kissing, and they set off a bomb they are able to walk past. Harold, fearing for his life, would tell the two to focus and watch because that bomb could have killed everyone. Harold would also mention we need to get precious Leshawna back, so let's be alive by the time we go to Area 51. Bridget would agree, telling Tyler to focus. Lindsay would be sad though and asks, but I want Tyler, which the two keep kissing but dodge landmines. Both teams make it around the same time. Harold would tell Alejandro and Duncan that they better not search with them, which the two agree to. Harold would get Bridget to help him find Leshawna and then an artifact. We'd see stuff like Heather getting stuck in that portal, but Alejandro would save her immediately, causing her to back away and destroy the portal on accident. Harold and Bridget would soon hear Leshawna in a cube. Harold would try to break Leshawna, but he fails to. The alien cube would still fall and spawn those alien creatures, which make peace with Bridget, but would start attacking her. Duncan is searching alone when he sees Bridget and Harold being attacked, which he can't help but laugh at what happened. Duncan would tell Leshawna that Bridget and Harold are being attacked by aliens, but he'll save them under the condition that you, Bridget, and Lindsay stay away from Alejandro, and me, you, and Harold have a truce so Harold would stop attacking me for no reason. Leshawna just wants to get out, so she agrees, which Duncan beats the aliens, and Harold hits the pin, releasing Leshawna, who has new makeup. Duncan reminds Leshawna and Harold that we're in a truce and reminds Bridget she can't go near Alejandro because of the deal. Leshawna doesn't like that deal that much, but she'll agree since Duncan set her free, and save Bridget and Harold. Cody would spawn evil Cody, which Duncan finds really cool, and tells Cody they should run back and bring it as an architect. Harold would probably see the alien thing and would want revenge by capturing it for the artifact, which Leshawna and Bridget are okay with, but now they have to find Tyler and Lindsay, who are somewhere. Heather and Alejandro would stumble across the cube that spawned the aliens, which the two decide to bring, but Alejandro resists Heather into letting him carry the box. All teams are sprinting back. Harold, seeing how Tyler and Lindsay just dodged the bombs earlier, would pass the box to them in fear of sending a landmine himself. Tyler and Lindsay hold it but are blasted by the bomb they step on, arriving to Chris, with Lindsay trying to show the artifact, but it's not intact. Duncan and Cody meet up with Heather and Alejandro. Duncan would tell Heather that they're running from their artifact, which is Evil Cody, and Heather's creeped that Evil Cody is the artifact, but goes with it and tells Alejandro he can keep the box, which Alejandro charms Heather once more. Team Amazon and Team Chris win, with Duncan letting Evil Cody chase Cody, having a laugh and beating Evil Cody for Cody. In the elimination, Leshawna and Bridget agree that Lindsay cannot continue playing the game if she's a bit hurt, but not injured like Tyler. The two bond, with Leshawna saying, "It's okay if we can't work with Alejandro. At least I have Harold and you have Jeff, and those guys that really matter to us rather than Alejandro." Bridget would agree. I'm sure Harold would say he thought Lindsay could avoid the traps, but he was very wrong in trusting her, so he's voting her out. And with 3 votes, Lindsay is out. We'd start off with Tyler expressing his sadness for Lindsay going. Alejandro would try to cheer up Tyler, saying he'll try to find out why and eliminate the necessary people. Alejandro would ask Leshawna and Bridget why they eliminated Lindsay, as he thought they were friends. The two wouldn't give a response as they agreed to Duncan's deal. Harold would say, "Oh, boo-hoo, one less person you can manipulate," which Tyler steps in. "Hey Harold, I hope everything's been good so far, but why did it have to be Lindsay?" Harold says that she cost the challenge and he's not gonna eliminate Leshawna and Bridget, who have been more useful than your girl. Sorry, man. Tyler would be like, "Come on, why not Bridget though? Lindsay at least tried," but Bridget would tell Tyler to go away. Tyler would lastly say to Harold, "Good luck working with the game as you've taken away my Lindsay." Harold is sad that he made Tyler sad, but he needs to follow Duncan's conditions and at least he and Victory can get away from Alejandro. Alejandro turns to Heather and Team Amazon if they want to teach Harold a lesson for eliminating Lindsay. Heather wouldn't care about getting Harold out as she's trying to deflect her love for Alejandro and teaching everyone she's not into him. Duncan, despite being in a truce with Victory, would say it would be fun to cause some more anarchy, as he thinks it's funny and that's what people get when they try to take advantage of him. Alejandro would ask Cody if he wants to, and Cody would think ultimately yeah, partly because Duncan is there. Heather would ask Cody and Duncan why are they teaming with the absolute worst, but Duncan would tease Heather, saying she's jealous of Alejandro's skill and charisma, which Cody would start to tease like Duncan because he's now very used to Duncan's antics and bullying, which makes Duncan smile as he's happy Cody is playing along and never thought he would be this cool. Everyone lands in Australia, which Harold starts speaking in an Australian accent, but Duncan would calmly tell Harold to stop. This strikes Alejandro's eyes as Duncan is usually angry towards Harold, but this time he wasn't. Chris announces the emu riding. Alejandro would try to lead Duncan and Cody to Team Victory, but Duncan would pretend to struggle, getting an emu, and Cody would chase after an emu, following Duncan's moves. Alejandro would start to freak out and would start helping Duncan and Cody get on an emu. Heather would be laughing at Alejandro's face, saying nice leadership. Alejandro would forgive Duncan and Cody for the slowdown, while his eye twitches. Harold and Tyler's talking through all this would start to make their friendship sour as Tyler develops hard feelings towards Harold for voting off Lindsay because she was just such a joy to him before Harold took her away. Team Victory would be able to cheer the sheep first. Alejandro would show up and Team Chris are able to go. While Harold is diving in, Alejandro would act with Duncan, pretending to get into an argument, causing Alejandro to push Duncan, and as Harold arrives back, he is knocked back by Duncan, who bumps into him, which causes Harold to get stuck, and Leshawna and Bridget to get mad at Duncan, but Duncan would blame it all on Al, and Al would offer the girls some help, but they know they can't with Duncan next to them. Leshawna is now starting to regret trucing with Duncan. Duncan would come up with Alejandro reaching in for a kiss, while Heather arrives up with the sheep. Heather jumps and grabs the sheep, but when she arrives, Alejandro would reach in for a kiss, which Heather freaks out and drops the sheep. Alejandro takes note of the sheep. Al would notice Tyler, who hasn't jumped yet, and seems to be sad. Alejandro would assure Tyler that Harold will be out for his actions, but we have to do our part and win challenges so we can send victory to elimination. This would pump Tyler a little bit, as he says he'll jump for Lindsay. Tyler would ask which sheep to go after, and Alejandro would point at it. And when they shear it, it had a tattoo. So they win first class, which Tyler and Alejandro are stoked. But Chris announces that Amazon and Victory are going to elimination together, which relieves Alejandro and worries him at the same time. Harold would talk about Duncan bumping into him, which Leshawna still would try to give the benefit of the doubt, and says that it was a complete accident and it won't happen again. Duncan wouldn't want Heather out as he enjoys teasing her. Cody, to him, is a cool man who deserves to stay. I think out of the three he made truces with, I think he'd like to keep Leshawna and Harold, because they're better friends and they have more interactions overall with them, rather than Bridget. And he would think Bridget would be happier with Jeff hosting the aftermath. Leshawna and Bridget agreed to vote for Heather for being bad in Island, but Harold would suspect Duncan is up to no good. So he votes for him even with Leshawna defending him, but Harold would worry that one of us are going home because we didn't vote for Duncan, which Leshawna still defends. With 3 votes, Bridget is out, so she can be with Jeff. Victory would be surprised with Harold telling Leshawna that he warned her, but Duncan would give a heartfelt explanation, saying he values all 3 of them, and he felt bad bumping into Harold earlier, and didn't want to separate him and Leshawna, so he thought Bridget, because Jeff can really be happy hosting the aftermath with Bridget around. Bridget understands and thanks Leshawna and Harold, who hug her, and say bye, and Leshawna would start to consider Duncan shady sometimes. Harold would lose all trust for everyone if they're all just gonna vote Victory out, which Leshawna tries to comfort Harold. Alejandro would see that Bridget is gone, and he'd ask Duncan why, and Duncan would tell him about his planning and reasonings. In confessionals, Alejandro would admit Duncan is a schemer, and it was nice working with him, but he's screwed when the merge happens. Duncan would have a confessional talking about the possibility that Al is just learning some of his moves and plans to use it against him, but he says he honestly deserves it for betraying everyone so far, but it was very fun. Everyone is now in Sweden, and each team would receive materials to build anything. Alejandro would think about making a ship named Lindsay, and Tyler can be the captain. This idea would pump Tyler up, as he's fully motivated to build a boat for his girl. I can see Harold coming up with great ideas for what to build, which Leshawna likes the spirit of. Leshawna would hug Harold, saying, "This is the Harold she knows and loves, the one who creates rather than complains," which Harold has love hearts in his eyes. He'd suggest it would be cool if the ice melted, and we build a big boat to sail. Duncan would probably consider Cody to be cool, and his bro in the game right now, so he would thank him for being such a cool dude, which Cody thanks Duncan for making him cool, which Duncan asks Heather if she's in favor for Cody being team captain. Cody's like, really? And of course becomes leader without Heather approving. Heather would have a confessional starting to consider Cody and Duncan annoying. Duncan then asks Cody, what shall we build? Which Cody doesn't know, and asks for some ideas, which Duncan knows Cody likes Gwen, so he'd suggest Gwen's face, which Cody is on board with, but Heather groans as she doesn't want to build the face of her enemy. Duncan would come up with the privacy curtain, which Heather comments is a genius idea. Later, Chris would make everyone show their creations, which Harold would not be happy. Alejandro also did a boat, but Leshawna tells Harold that we're gonna beat them. Duncan and Cody would be surprised everyone made boats, as there's nowhere to sail, and Heather would be so mad in the confessionals she let the 2 do it, which she chases Cody around. Though Duncan would think about making the head hollow, so Amazon can sail in it. Duncan would be seen cutting it, which Heather interprets it as destroying, so she also cuts it, but not for long after Duncan thanks her for turning Gwen's head into a boat, which she didn't realize. Duncan and Cody would then jump on the head, causing the ice to crack and Heather to jump on board, and they start sailing. Alejandro and Harold admit that was a good move to get sailing. Duncan and Cody enthusiastically drive the ship, while Heather looks out. Alejandro would be hyping Tyler, but Tyler would keep on turning everywhere, and Harold steers the ship like a pirate and even copies the accent. I feel like it could be a close race, with Team Chris being near but winding, and Team Amazon just going slow, and Harold sailing real fast. I'll say Team Chris would make it first though. They get the rocks, Everyone would soon get their cannon and 3 meatballs, and have to get a flag. Duncan would really get a bunch of ideas with the meatballs, mischievous ones, which he tells Cody, but Heather suggests to just go for the flag. Alejandro would tell Tyler to load up the cannons and aim, which Tyler does. Tyler tries to aim low for Amazon's ship, but ends up missing, which Alejandro is okay with and gives him another shot. That shot ended up in Team Amazon's cannon by some crazy chance, and Duncan takes advantage and shoots Team Chris, making the ship sink. Alejandro suggests to hit Amazon, but Tyler notices Victory is real close to the flag, so he shoots them and actually hits them. Harold would be surprised to see that he's been shot, but he won't give and tells Leshawna to help steer while Harold shoots. Before they sink, Alejandro would wink at Heather, which Heather is tired of. Harold would shoot one meatball that almost hits Amazon, but Duncan retorts and hits Victory's ship, slowing them down even more. Harold waits for Amazon to get closer so it's easier for him to shoot them. Duncan would get Heather to steer, and Cody to paddle with a stick, and Duncan is about to have fun. Harold would shoot Amazon's ship, slowing them down a little bit, but Duncan shoots at Harold's cannon, severely damaging the ship and the cannon, but Harold would shoot his final shot, making Amazon sink, but they still move forward while Victory is in place. It's a close race, but Cody would volunteer to make an epic stunt in front of Harold and Leshawna, and Duncan would throw Cody to the flag, winning the challenge, but getting him frozen. Also, I'm sure there are some twigs that help Amazon and Victory light their cannon, and hey, Harold has his glasses. Heather and Alejandro would still have that talk, successfully charming Heather until Al has to go for elimination. The vote would be a tie, but Chris announces it's a non-elimination, and Amazon is getting the massage of their lives. If you've seen the exclusive clip, then Duncan would be the one getting the extreme special treatment, with Heather and Cody laughing and enjoying the work. Jeff would be excited to see Bridget join him, but said Blanley joins him and tells Jeff that she sent her to Siberia, which Jeff is really mad about. We get our That's Gonna Leave a Mark segment, and a part where everyone opens their peanut package. The people chosen for a second chance are Sierra, Lindsay, Beth, Noah, and Gwen are given the second chance. We get the ultimate Blanley diss track, and we'd be shown gross Blanley clips. The board game happens, and it would take me a million years to fully go through, but Beth would still get the question of what is Duncan's band name, which Beth takes a while to think of, but Blanley ends up shouting the answer after being too impatient. Because of this, Blanley gets a spot back into the game. Everyone would be falling down the plane. Tyler would be the one to wake up first and screams, causing everyone to wake up. Chris tells everyone to grab onto a paddle boat. Everyone except Heather, Harold, and Tyler grab on the same paddle boat, while the 3 grab onto the other. Harold would notice everyone's on a waterfall, so he thinks fast and uses the rope to get the other boat tied. He doesn't want to die nor Leshawna to die, and that's why he does. The rope is extended to the boat where Heather tells Alejandro to hold onto the rope. Tyler would hold the rope, and Harold tells the 3 to paddle as fast as you can. This effort is able to get everyone safe on shore, with Alejandro thanking Heather and Harold hugging Leshawna. The 3 then look at each other and appreciate their work, sparking some feeling of teamwork between the 3 again. Leshawna would be asking when the merge would happen, which Alejandro promises it will be today, which Harold tells Alejandro if that's the case, don't you dare talk to my Leshawna, which Alejandro expresses his concerns, with Harold smarts in the merge. Chris would take everyone to the theater, where he announces the new contestant, Blanley. Everyone is not happy about this. Heather would be sick. Leshawna and Harold assumes it's another stunt by Chris. Tyler is very sad it's not Lindsay, and Cody would ask who Blanley is. Chris would announce it's finally the merge. Alejandro would thank Amazon and Tyler for the good times and hopes they can work some way again. Duncan is just happy. That means more anarchy. Duncan would congratulate Cody on making it this far while he gives a noogie to him. Everyone is now going to get a partner for the challenge. There are 3 girls and 5 guys, but I'm sure Chris would find it funny to consider Cody to be with the girls. Leshawna would go first, and really hopes it's Harold, but she gets Alejandro, which Heather takes away for herself. Leshawna spins again and gets the bear, which she runs from, but then gets a 3rd try and gets Harold. She's pissed that it took that long. Blanley would get Tyler, which Tyler comments Lindsay could have been here and he's sad. Lastly, Cody would get Duncan, who's he's alright with. Next is the wedding dress. Cody wouldn't want to put one, but Duncan says it'll only be for this challenge. Heather and Alejandro are able to get the dress first. Harold would give good tips to Leshawna, who gets it next. Tyler would try to guide Blanley, but Blanley would end up walking into a cake. Duncan would be trolling Cody, telling him to go places, but Alejandro would lead Cody. Alejandro and Heather go first on the tightrope. Heather would be ranting about Blanley and saying she'd appreciate if any other person arrived rather than someone nobody knows. Alejandro would consider Harold to be a threat, but Heather says no, as she felt a spark of teamwork with him. Heather would rant about Blanley, but Alejandro says Leshawna, and Alejandro would still fall to not make himself look like a threat. Tyler and Blanley are walking, and Tyler would be expressing his sadness that Lindsay is not here, and he doesn't really want to carry Blanley. But Blanley would be cold and demanding until she farts and scares Tyler, making him fall. Harold and Leshawna are next, and they are actually doing fine, confessing their love to each other, and Harold talking about that spark of teamwork he felt with Heather and Tyler. But Duncan notices they're about to win, so he and Cody would cause anarchy by bouncing the rope, which causes Harold to fall. Duncan would compliment Cody, saying he's such a prankster, which the two go on to win the challenge. Leshawna and Harold would be angry at Duncan, which they wish to vote out, but he and Cody have immunity. Leshawna just hopes she doesn't get votes, and Blanley gets all the votes. In the elimination, Tyler would try to get Alejandro to vote Blanley because he felt uncomfortable holding her, and she's bossy. Alejandro would suggest Harold, but Heather begs it to be Leshawna, as Harold could possibly be helpful, which Alejandro would agree with out of love. Leshawna and Harold would vote Blanley as she's annoying and can be a threat. I can see Al getting Blanley's vote on Leshawna. Duncan would try to get Cody to vote for Harold, but Cody would think Blanley's just bossy and doesn't want to be near her, so in the vote, Leshawna is out with Harold crying, but Leshawna comforts Harold, telling him to work with the right people and win the game, which inspires him. He would think Alejandro and Duncan are the perpetrators. Harold would wonder if mentioning the favor could have still had Leshawna here, but he says if Alejandro is here, he can always threaten him with the favor, and if he doesn't, he'll be a bigger threat. Heather and Harold would have a talk about working together again to vote off Alejandro, and which Heather is so into. They also recruit Tyler to help beat Alejandro. Alejandro would see the three talk and would charm Heather once again, which gets Heather loving Alejandro. Heather would suggest voting Blanley until Harold tells Heather to get her head in the game, which she agrees to go for Alejandro. Blanley would still reach out to Chef again, since she sees Alejandro and Heather aren't really into allying with her. Cody and Duncan enjoy a bunch of cakes and their time in first class. They would walk into economy to see what is happening between everyone, which Alejandro welcomes them back and tells them that Heather, Harold, and Tyler seem to have some talk about voting a special person out. He then charms Heather once again, causing her to suggest Blanley again, but Harold would get in Alejandro's face, telling him to stop. Alejandro would make a deal with Duncan, where if they vote for Harold today, and then the next day, he votes for whoever Duncan wants. Heather would see Alejandro talking and would tell him he better not be recruiting them in some alliance. Duncan would smile and thumbs up Heather though, calming her down. Duncan would see that everyone is making alliances, and he's tired of that, but since Alejandro is the lucky man today, it would be funny to vote for someone else rather than Harold. He tells Cody this, and he's excited to do some trolling. Everyone lands in China and arrive at the Great Wall. Harold would be spitting facts about China, which Duncan pretends to love the facts and tells him to inform him of the place. Alejandro finds it weird he's interested, but interprets him making nice with Harold to trick him later. Alejandro would thank Duncan, and Duncan would grab a bike as he asks Alejandro what he plans to do with the others. Cody would still get Ace the donkey and tries to keep up with Alejandro and Duncan. Harold would get the other bike. Alejandro gets a skateboard. Blanley would tell everyone that she's gonna be in a carriage. Tyler wouldn't take the pogo stick and thinks he can run, and Heather would still get those shoes. Duncan wouldn't exclude Harold or the others from his trolling. Duncan would already think Tyler's not gonna finish. Same with Heather, and that means he can go after Harold for a laugh. As Duncan and Al are talking, Cody would pull up and would bump Alejandro out with Ace, hoping to give a laugh to Duncan, which he does and compliments him for that. Duncan would mention that Harold got the other bike, so he's gonna think until he catches up. Alejandro would take a little bit to get back on his feet, but Harold passes him, He soon catches up with Duncan and Cody. Duncan and Cody would see the crack way ahead, and Duncan would tell Cody to split so Harold would go in the middle and get stuck, which they successfully pull off. Harold would get very mad at Duncan, but remembers he has to get Alejandro out. Alejandro would catch but would help Harold up, which Harold says thanks, and Alejandro asks if Duncan and Cody did that, which Harold says yes. Alejandro has a confessional asking if that was on purpose, or if Harold is just blind and he doesn't know. We can see Cody, Duncan, Alejandro, Harold, and Heather arrive. Heather would get mad at the sight of Blanley being there, and lastly, Tyler doesn't show up. Because of this, the gong rings, and he doesn't get the special lunch. Tyler would soon arrive, and here's that the second challenge is to eat the most authentic Chinese things. Harold would be very excited to try authentic Chinese, but isn't enthusiastic on the first meal, which is donkey meat. Cody realizes it's ace and he doesn't want to eat. Tyler would be like, "Aw, if only I was in the challenge, I could beat you all with my iron belly," which Alejandro hears and is able to manipulate and strike a deal. Blanley would still get the yummy meals, and I think Sierra was cheating in the original with the tea because that just made her think of Cody rather than the challenge, which was a big boost to her. Cody is out. Next are the worms, which Heather and Harold are grossed out, but Harold would simply take off his glasses and shut his nose to not taste it. Alejandro would feed worms to Tyler, who likes it because it has tons of protein. Heather would still barf out everything. Next are the starfish, which everyone eats, but Duncan would still fail, but would notice Tyler eating and comments about his snacking. Next is the slop, which Heather still notices Blanley's food, and Alejandro bending, and Duncan notices Tyler eating. Harold would be pissed to hear this cheating, which Alejandro and Blanley try to disprove, but Chris ends up switching the bowls, making Harold win. Harold would flex his win in front of Blanley and Alejandro, and plans to keep an eye on the two, as one of them are going home. Now, Heather, Harold, and Tyler go to talk. They talk about voting Alejandro. Alejandro would try to get the guys to vote off Blanley, which Duncan lies and agrees, but plans to get Blanley's vote. After Heather's talk, Alejandro would charm her into loving him, which Heather gives Al her vote. Duncan and Cody come up to Blanley, and they make a point about voting off the person, which gets her vote. With 3 votes, that person is Heather, and she's out. Duncan and Cody are able to argue that Heather will just bust your cheating every time to Blanley getting her vote. Heather would be pissed and would tell Duncan and Cody that they were the most annoying and worst teammates ever, which Duncan just chuckles. Harold would try not to be pissed at Heather and just tells her this is what you caused, but Alejandro would charm her one more time and would even kiss her on the cheeks before Chris kicks Heather out. We'd start off with Blanley flexing her skill in the last challenge and thanking Duncan and Cody for voting Heather, and Blanley would rub in the fact Heather's out to Alejandro, which annoys him a little bit, but he gotta set his eyes on Duncan, that suspicious traitor. Alejandro would question if Duncan is a traitor and just taking advantage of my help. He'll just have to find out. Tyler and Harold talk about the unfortunate elimination of Heather, saying they could have gotten Alejandro out, but now it's our turn to continue for her. Duncan and Cody are just plotting some more ways to troll. Everyone would land in Africa, where Duncan and Cody would laugh at Chris's outfit. Chris would announce the soccer batting challenge, which Harold is excited to play. Spitting facts about Africa. Tyler would be hyped too. First up is Blanley, who has tons of confidence, but Duncan and Cody plan to kick her and the other kickers. Duncan would kick Harold but claim it was an accident, which Alejandro takes note of. Cody would hit Blanley's butt, causing her to yell out, "Who hit me?" which Cody points at Tyler, which Blanley confronts and takes some plums. Tyler is next. Duncan and Cody hit real hard, causing him to drop all his plums, and they still kick even after he falls, which Harold doesn't like and would kick the ball at Duncan, which Alejandro takes note of again, and Blanley would be going hard on Tyler. Duncan is next, and while Harold tries to hit him, Cody would hit Harold, and Duncan would grin with a thumbs up to Cody, which Alejandro now thinks they're trolling, as they should be going after the runner and not the kicker. Harold is next, and while Duncan hits him in the nuts, Al would hit Duncan and Cody back, starting a kicking war. Cody is next, and Alejandro would kick the plums, causing Cody to bend down and to be hit by Harold. Lastly, it is Alejandro who deflects everyone's kicks. Everyone is now hitting gourds, we'd see Harold do pretty well hitting Chef's nuts, but he would get karma when Duncan hits Harold. Cody would hit one to Blanley's nose, which Alejandro finds not cool, and shoots Cody. Duncan then bats Tyler in the head, knocking him out, and that crosses the line for Alejandro, so he'd hit up and it hits Duncan in the head. Alejandro would then win first, but the others eventually hit theirs. Duncan would have a confessional starting to think Alejandro has caught onto him and Cody's trolling, and that's why they're going to shoot him with the tranks. Next is the Zeke hunting. These three and these three would split up. Tyler is confident that he'll catch Zeke, but when shooting one, he hits a cameraman by accident. Blanley would tell Duncan and Cody to call her when they find Zeke, which Duncan says alright, and as they're walking away, Cody would shoot Blanley. While Tyler is trying to aim, Alejandro would propose an alliance to Harold, which he's like, would try to propose an alliance to Harold, which he's like, are you out of your mind? After what you've done to me, I am never gonna, which Alejandro shushes him and says that it's an alliance against Duncan, Cody, and Blanley. Blanley because she's annoying and overconfident, and proves his points on why Duncan and Cody are dangerous. Because they are trolling everyone, and that means betraying since Duncan has arrived. That's why they've been sabotaging you ever since, which Harold sees, and Alejandro asks, do you want to make the final two with me and kick Duncan and Cody's asses? Which Harold thinks, but Al says, Leshawna would be happy if he does so. Which Harold corrects no, but he'll help him. Tyler then eventually runs out of tranks, but he doesn't really realize as he shoots the last one. The two sides would run into each other, causing Tyler to shoot Duncan, but Cody shoots Tyler, which all parties get shot, and we'd still have the wake up song. Later, Duncan would find Zeke from the water, which Zeke starts beating him up. Harold and Alejandro would laugh at Duncan a bunch before they shoot him and Zeke at the same time. Chris wouldn't see who shot first, so he just gives immunity to both, which the two high-five. Duncan and Cody are talking. They want to vote Alejandro or Harold, but they have immunity, so that means Tyler. But Cody would question, is Tyler even a threat? Which Duncan says no, and that's why we go after overconfident Blanley, as she thinks she can win the competition with her crew. Cody would like the idea, especially after the not-so-great interaction at Niagara Falls. Alejandro wouldn't want to eliminate Duncan, as he wants an epic showdown against him. And plus, voting Blanley means one less ally for them, and a not-so-threatening threat is out, which Harold and Tyler understand, so with everyone voting her, Blanley is out, complaining and leaking secrets about everyone, causing Chris to push her out. Okay, I said Harold and Alejandro shot Ezekiel. Well, I'm just gonna say Alejandro just gets the immunity, and then he decides to bring Cody up for strategic reasons. Since China didn't have a double elimination, someone here will get booted. Despite Alejandro making an alliance with Harold against Duncan and Cody, he would find it smart to get good with Cody again by taking him to first class. Just like in the original, Alejandro would bribe Cody, but this time into alerting Alejandro about what Duncan says or plans to do, which Cody is more focused on the candy, but he agrees just for the candy, lol. Harold would be upset that he has to stay with Duncan, which he says out loud, and Duncan just tells him, you better watch your mouth or you won't know what hit you, which Harold laughs saying, I have Alejandro and Tyler on my side, and you only have Cody, who is probably getting sick and tired of you. Duncan would then be like, didn't you hate Alejandro? Weren't you trying to ally with Heather so you can take him down? What happened? Did Alejandro charm you like he did to Heather? Which Harold's like, gosh, no way I would let Alejandro take me away from my luscious Leshawna. And I found out I hated you more after Alejandro came to me with a more promising deal you can ever. Right, Tyler? And Tyler's just exercising, which he says, yeah, but when he tries to do a backflip, he lands on his chest, which Duncan laughs at. It's the egg hunting challenge, which Tyler is confident he'll find a bunch of eggs. Harold would be spitting endless facts about Easter Island, which Duncan plans more egg-throwing anarchy with Cody, where they grab eggs but use half of them to throw at others, which Cody finds it really funny. While searching eggs, Alejandro would bribe Cody with more chocolate, and Cody would tell Alejandro Duncan plans to egg everyone, which Alejandro thanks Cody for. As soon as Cody comes back with chocolate, Duncan gets sus where he got the chocolate, and Cody says from Alejandro, which Duncan thinks the worst and asks if he bribed him into something, which Cody says yes and chuckles as he knows Alejandro is trying to cause some anarchy and distrust. Everyone would be picking up eggs, but Tyler would be seen picking up and dropping some eggs, one way or another. Everyone soon arrive at the nest, which let's say Tyler arrives first. Alejandro and Harold would be cheering on Tyler, while Duncan and Cody are laughing and planning to cause trouble. Duncan would throw an egg, causing Tyler to fall, but luckily for him, all his eggs survived, so he gets a second chance. Cody is up next, and by the way, everyone is singing, so we'd hear Cody's beautiful voice, but Tyler wouldn't be happy that the enemies are getting far, so he throws an egg at Cody, causing him to fall, and Duncan to say that crosses the line. Alejandro is next, and would accidentally drop an egg, but Tyler's able to throw one up, and it hits his butt. So Harold throws an egg, which Al catches, and tells Tyler, "Gosh, have you not recovered from dodgeball?" Which Tyler says he's usually good at throwing. But Duncan would egg Alejandro in the face, which Harold tries to throw an egg at him, but Duncan dodges and eggs Tyler. Al makes it up to the top, but Chris would probably want to see some egging happen, so he continues the game for everyone. Harold is next, and Duncan would egg him from behind and laugh, but Al would egg Duncan in the face, almost starting a war when Duncan holds his last egg, which Cody warns him about, so they stop. As Harold asks an egg from Tyler, Tyler throws but ends up hitting the feet, which make Harold slip and break his eggs. Lastly, it's Duncan, and he brings Cody's eggs, but Alejandro, Harold, and Tyler would keep firing at Duncan and Cody, causing Duncan to fall because nobody else made it up. Alejandro is the winner. In the elimination, Alejandro and Harold are talking about voting Duncan, but Harold would mention about Tyler's screw-ups and kind of worries he's going to be a liability in the next challenge. And plus, he misses Lindsay. Alejandro values Tyler as a friend, but would want to teach Duncan and Cody a lesson for trolling and betraying everyone. He tried to convince Harold, who is reluctant because of what Duncan has done, but Al would keep begging, but Harold would threaten with his favor, which Alejandro would remind Harold that they're in an alliance together, which Harold sighs and just agrees, if it means having a powerful guy on your side, and truly teaching Duncan a lesson. Alejandro would come up to Cody and Duncan to offer them a deal. They don't vote him out this elimination, so it's a 2v2 next day, and it's fair game. I'm sure Duncan likes to take risks, so I'm sure Duncan would like to take this risk and wants to prank Alejandro and Harold, more so he'd agree, with Cody also agreeing. So with 4 votes, Tyler is out, and Harold says sorry and hopes the best for him and Lindsay. Alejandro would invite Duncan to first class, where they simply bond over Heather's crush for Alejandro, and Duncan's motives for trolling, and more stuff as they know one of them will be voted off. Alejandro would come up with a deal with Duncan where all alliances are disbanded and everyone trolls anyone, which Duncan would agree with but would still help Cody. Meanwhile, Cody and Harold are talking about the finale and what they think would happen. Cody eventually brings up that with me and Duncan, we can vote off Alejandro once and for all, which Harold would like and consider, but again, he's working with him in an alliance to the finale and can't fully trust Duncan. Harold would assume Alejandro still wants to work with him, and Cody would be more competitive than usual, as he plans to use his tricks he learned from Duncan's trolling. Everyone lands in Alberta, where they have to make a dinosaur. Harold would be spitting facts about dinosaurs, and is confident as he knows the skeletons of the dinosaurs. Nobody is listening. Well, clearly listening, as Alejandro would hear him say all this. He knows Harold is really a threat for smarts, but focuses on sabotaging Duncan first, as he's the one who started all this trolling. Harold would just find it weird that Al isn't listening to him like he normally does. Anyways, Harold would be building his dinosaurs immediately. It's a war zone between Duncan and Alejandro, who are squirting at each other with glitter glue and throwing stuff. Cody would be building his poop dinosaur for a while until he's caught in the crossfire and starts throwing stuff. And Alejandro and Duncan, but Harold doesn't care and he puts time and effort into his dinosaur. Soon, the 3 men stop the fight so they can build their dinosaurs. Before Chris stops the time, Alejandro and Duncan start fighting again, spraying glitter and drawing on each other's dinosaurs, and they would fight over the cart with all those items, but end up throwing it into Harold's dinosaur, causing it to be destroyed. And Chris happens to stop the time. Harold would be fuming and only blames Duncan, as he's the one trolling. For the voting, Harold would vote for Cody's dinosaur, despite it not looking good, as Duncan's or Alejandro, who'd I'd imagine copy each other. Harold would get shocked, but it would be funny if Harold uses the trick of clenching your butt to get a truth on the electric chair, on the polygraphs. Alejandro would pretend to feel bad for Duncan, that nobody's voting for him, so he'd say Duncan but get shocked, and then he votes Cody. Duncan would do the same, but many times, and ends up voting for Cody's poop dinosaur. Cody would say Alejandro's was intricate, which Alejandro laughs in Duncan's face, but Harold would call out Duncan for destroying his dinosaur, which Al and Duncan blame on each other. Cody wins the driller, Alejandro wins the pickaxe, Duncan wins the sandbox set, and Harold wins nothing. The next challenge is to drill oil. Alejandro would immediately steal Cody's drill, but leaves the pickaxe behind, which Duncan gets chased by Alejandro, threatening to drill if he doesn't stop trolling him. Harold wouldn't lose all hope and starts digging fast. Chris and Chef start launching boulders and happen to get Harold stuck in his hole. He sees Alejandro running towards him and asks if he can drill the boulder, but Alejandro would instead tell Harold that he's fine with him being stuck, which Alejandro's like, "We're in an alliance, remember?" Which Alejandro says, "Not anymore, it's anyone's game, so you just have to work your way out." Duncan would then celebrate at the sight of oil, which catches Alejandro's attention as he runs for oil. Harold's anger has risen to new heights, with him rapping about trusting Alejandro and calling him out for stealing Bridget from Jeff and Leshawna from him, and loses all hope until Cody walks in singing and releases Harold with the pickaxe. Harold would now trust Cody and thanks him for releasing him, which Cody's like, "No problem, I gotta help you, especially after Al betrayed you by throwing that cart." Cody would then let Harold find oil with the pickaxe, and he thinks Harold can get some. Alejandro would show up with the oil, winning immunity while Duncan has nothing. Later, with great trust and teamwork, Cody and Harold arrive with the oil, and Duncan is last. Harold and Cody high-five, as Harold is happy he can finally trust someone, but isn't happy that Al won. Alejandro would obviously vote Duncan. Harold and Cody talk. They don't want to vote for each other, so they vote Duncan. Cody's actually fine with this, as he'd be a threat in the finale, and Cody doesn't need Duncan anymore, as he has his tricks, and Duncan was trolling Cody a bunch earlier. So, with 3 votes, Duncan is out, and he says it's a pleasure working with y'all, and pats Cody on the back really hard, but whispers he'll be back. Jeff and Bridget are happy to be reunited, but Bruno the bear would attack Jeff. The two would show clips of the finalists, their good moments and bad ones, and I think it would be funny if instead of crashing into a house, Blaney crashes into an African tribe tent, so she's in all casts. Everyone is gonna disagree on why their finalist is best. Everyone now has to choose their finalists. I've arranged everyone with who I think they'd vote for. I'm sure the same people vote for Alejandro, so Courtney would think Cody and Harold are weak. Tyler just goes with Lindsay, who thinks Alejandro is better looking, and Blaney is just thrown onto Alejandro. Sierra, of course, Gwen and Trent are friends with Cody, and still think Duncan is alright. Owen likes Cody, and I don't think he'd consider to be as good friends with Alejandro due to not having more time with him. So he gets Noah and Izzy for Cody. Leshawna, of course, goes Harold, and DJ had some interactions with Harold. Heather goes Harold because she worked with her. Beth because they kissed in action. Justin because he'd think Harold can play the game smarter, and he was alright. And in action, and Eva because Harold has smarts at least. Jeff and Bridget have to be neutral, and Duncan is in Alberta. Conveniently, I have the volunteer surfers in front, so we'd have Courtney for Alejandro, Sierra for Cody, and Leshawna for Harold. For the spirit animals, Courtney chooses a jaguar, Sierra chooses the raccoon because it's strong and unpredictable, and Leshawna chooses the dolphin because it's smart and helpful to all. In the surfing challenge, we'd see the 3 do pretty good until Sierra pushes Leshawna in the water for Cody, and she pushes Courtney too, but Courtney would be able to get back on the surfboard while being behind. I think Sierra's winning, and then Courtney, and Leshawna is last for that. Cody gets the wheelbarrow, Alejandro gets a baby stroller, and Harold gets nothing, but Leshawna would apologize to Harold on live air, while Courtney complains Sierra's pushing shouldn't be allowed. It's now a race to Hawaii. I know the plane hasn't been blown up since Sierra's not here, but I think Chris is sadistic enough to make the 4 go to Hawaii themselves. Duncan would ask Chris if they're gonna take him to Hawaii, which Chris says no, and you're gonna have to take yourselves to Hawaii, along with the finalists, because I don't like wasting extra fuel on extra people. Harold would ask, can we at least get some stuff, which Chris says they'll get later. Chris leaves, and Harold's like, gosh, I hate that man. He'd seriously leave us with nothing, and we just have to make our way to Hawaii somehow, which is 5,000 kilometers from here. Cody would just tell Harold that we should start going if we want to make it in time, which Duncan says he'll have to agree and stop complaining now. Alejandro wouldn't want the guys to follow him, so he tries to get a head start until Duncan notices and tells everyone to follow him. Alejandro would wish Duncan and Cody good luck to getting to Hawaii, which Duncan of course plans to do some trolling. The truck carrying the animals wouldn't arrive because the plane never exploded. But soon, the finalists make it to the train station and the train. All four get on the train, but everyone is hiding from each other in fear of being ambushed. Harold would make it to the front of the train and does think of detaching the train, but doesn't want to make himself a bigger threat, nor lose Cody. Duncan and Alejandro have a fight in the train, with the two throwing stuff at each other. Before Alejandro walks back, guess what? The animals are there, and he decides to let them loose on Duncan and Cody. Harold is relaxing, but worries that Cody could be in big trouble because of Alejandro, but still wants to lay low. As Alejandro walks back into the room, Ezekiel would attack Alejandro until Duncan detaches the carriage, which Alejandro would respond by throwing Ezekiel onto Duncan, who gets attacked the same way, and Cody would get hit too trying to save Duncan. Alejandro would go on the roof and jumps across to find Harold, who is at the front. Alejandro would tell Harold that Duncan and Cody are in huge trouble being attacked by Zeke, which makes Harold run to save them with no hesitation. Harold would throw food at Ezekiel until Ezekiel catches up to him and throws the three guys out of the train one by one, but luckily they all are able to land on a horse. Soon, Alejandro would see the three guys are riding on a horse and would land on Cody's horse, and throws him, but Harold catches him. The four eventually make it to the dock with the boats. Harold takes his, Alejandro takes his, and Duncan takes a boat with Cody, offering to drive it so Alejandro won't win. Harold and Duncan would work together to bump Alejandro, and we'd see a big bumping match at one point Duncan asks Cody to steer while he jumps on Alejandro's boat and would try to steer the boat away, which Alejandro's able to recover from. Harold would speed up while Cody and Alejandro fight with swordfish, which Alejandro still gets blasted in the air. Duncan would think Cody's finally safe, and Al is gonna lose. Harold arrives first, and then Duncan and Cody, but Alejandro's boat would still land on Cody's boat, causing the two to tie for a second, which means it's a tiebreaker. Okay, it's tiebreaker time. I'll treat this like a rewrite since both finalists have their endings. Harold would let Cody choose for better luck. I really wouldn't know what Cody would get, so I'll just say he gets the fire dance again. Cody and Alejandro have to fight while Harold is tied. Sierra and Owen would be the loudest cheerleaders. I'm sure Harold's supporters would cheer for him too. Courtney would be the main one telling Alejandro to crush Cody, but Harold wouldn't try to sabotage Cody in any way, and tries giving tips like a low blow, which Cody does, but Alejandro recovers real quick. Cody would try to take Alejandro's fighting stick, but Al ends up taking Cody's, and with nowhere to go, Cody is pummeled out of the arena, giving Al the win. Harold and Cody's supporters are shocked, and Harold would be very upset this happened, and Courtney is celebrating. Next is the dummy building. I think Cody and Leshawna would volunteer for Harold, and Alejandro takes Courtney and Heather. Leshawna and Cody get along very well, while Courtney and Heather don't get along and fight over Courtney getting out real early. Between the two, I'd see Harold finishing his dummy before Heather and Courtney put the head because they're fighting over it. Alejandro would tell Courtney to put her differences aside and just work with Heather against Harold, who laughs in Alejandro's face. Alejandro would then charm Heather into working with Courtney. Alejandro gets the baby stroller while Harold gets Cody's wheelbarrow. After, Alejandro tells Harold that he feels bad and will let him use the wheelbarrow while he'll just carry it himself. Harold and Alejandro make it to the lava pool, where Cody, Leshawna, and Heather Courtney are able to cut ropes. Heather would just want to speed up things, so she cuts a bunch of ropes down, but luckily it all just burns. Cody would then ask Heather, did you just cut all the ropes so this course is safer for him? Which Leshawna's like, ooh, Heather's got a crush, which makes Heather growl as she walks away. Courtney comments that's not cool, and she hits Cody, but Leshawna would tackle her and slap her a bunch. Cody would cut a rope, but it would put Harold in the cage. Cody apologizes, but Al thanks him and promises to let Harold catch up. While letting Harold catch up, Al would confess his love to Heather, and Heather would also confess her love before kneeing him in the nuts. Alejandro returns, but notices Harold is running, so he runs. In Harold's canon ending, Harold wouldn't catch up as Al is about to throw his dummy, but Harold uses his mad skills and slides the dummy between Alejandro's legs into the volcano, winning the season. Leshawna would be freaking out, and Cody too. Duncan would pat Harold and congratulate while Courtney complains. In Alejandro's ending, Al would close his legs in the last second and throws his in the volcano, winning the season. And Courtney is celebrating. Harold would feel defeated, but Leshawna and Cody comfort him and congratulate him. Also in both endings, Zeke would still pull up, trying to steal the money, but I can imagine Harold would prevent the money from being stolen either way. And the volcano erupts because of pineapples and everyone is swimming. And that is what I think would happen if Harold never quit in Japan. We get a bunch of changes like DJ, Noah, Gwen, and Courtney not making it further, while Leshawna, Bridget, Harold, and Tyler make it much further. We get a cool alliance with Heather and Harold. Harold would have a good friendship with Tyler. Cody and Alejandro getting good much earlier. Team Chris going right. Team Victory actually surviving until the merge. Duncan causing anarchy because everyone wants power and he wants to get in the way for fun. And even having a good friendship with Cody. And lastly, Harold making it to the finale, to name a few. I swear, dude could have won if he didn't quit. Like, wow. We get a lot of him too, because he was a main character, and I think he deserved a win after a landslide of events. Duncan and Cody in the original didn't really like each other, but feel like there could have been more done with them. I mean, they love Gwen, so why not make them friends? I did it as realistic as possible with him bullying Cody until he found him cool, and Cody following in Duncan's footsteps. I really like the outcome, as I think Harold truly deserved a win, but Alejandro was pretty good. Sadly, we wouldn't get a lot of Noah, which is kinda sad, but at least we get Tyler. I want to thank user XN1XT2WC2E, at Silly Lil Autistic Dude, at Hussein 4K4, and at CXROQ for suggesting the idea to this video. What if Harold never quit? Sadly, I might have to limit idea picking to only the latest video, because it's a hassle trying to find everyone who commented the same idea. I'm sorry, but it would make my comment picking job easier and less of a hassle going through all your great ideas. And I want to give some tips. I want to help y'all come up with the best ideas. If your idea has maybe a little bit of context like what season and when, or some details, then I'll be more likely to consider. And I recently developed a strategy for developing a very good what if idea. For many ideas. Consider this. My what ifs are supposed to be realistic. That means no changing personalities, but when you come up with a what if, like, what if someone never did something, I want you to consider this. Even though the character does this action in the season, think about the same character in another season would react. For example, this video. World Tour, Harold quit, but would Action or Island, Harold quit? I don't know for Island, but Action? No, because Harold lost Island and he came back to win Action. So he wouldn't quit after someone tells him to do so. Check for at least one season where the character is likely to do or not to do this, because you're still keeping faith to the character and making the idea more realistic personality in one season to another. Just ask, would the character in this season do or not do this? With this, you can take out this idea. I'm not calling names, but you can take out ideas like what if DJ never quit in Action? DJ has always been a pure human and is kind and wants the best for everyone. So would Island DJ quit the alliance if it was bugging him? Yes, because Island DJ didn't want to compete in challenges because Bunny was gone and that was bugging him. Would World Tour DJ quit? Yes, because the animal curse really bugged him and he wanted to be eliminated. So that's maybe something you can go through. That's why I just can't do what ifs, like what if DJ never quit in Action, because there is no season where he'd realistically not quit. I'm not saying your ideas are bland or terrible. This is so you can develop a very good realistic what if idea. Your ideas are good, but I don't really like saying this can't happen because I want to give many ideas a chance, but some just can't happen. So yeah. And yes, I know I changed Scarlett's personality in this video, and I never plan to do so again, because I'm not blaming anyone, but it noticeably didn't reach heights like the previous and next video. But I still thank y'all for the support on that video. Also, if I get a new video idea on other videos now, I'll reply with my thoughts, and then I'll say I only accept from this video. Here's the voting chart. I do not plan to extend this to All-Stars, but if you want to see that, maybe comment down. I spin the wheel, and looks like we got Island. So leave your Island ideas in the comment section. Thank you all for 350 subscribers. That is truly incredible, and at this rate, we can hit 500 real soon. So thank you so much. If you want to hit 500 much faster though, maybe share my videos to friends, as I'm sure they'll like it, and I'd be very grateful if you do so. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see y'all next time in my next What If. Bye y'all.